In this lesson, I would like to go over how to transform your data to prepare it for machine learning algorithms in order for you to produce your machine learning models. In this example, we will be using fraudulent credit card data. And in order for this data set to have been created, we generated it ourselves. And so for that to happen, we brought in Adobe clickstream data that also included purchases made on a website. And I wrote a little script to say which of those purchases we would consider to be fraudulent to see if we could later on down the road learn off of that data set and predict future fraudulent purchases. For this data set, I basically just said for all the browsers that were used in the purchases needed to be unknown. Geo-country was not the United States, and the operating system is unknown. And that, if those three things were true, all of the purchases with that would be fraudulent. So it's just a bunch of ones and zeros in our target column that's created by this script. In order to ensure that the algorithm can properly be applied, all of the numbers or all of the columns have to contain numerics or vectors. And in order for that to happen, we use what we call feature learn and feature transform in Syntasa. This is a basic machine learning pipeline, and what we're going to be focusing on today is right here is how we go from this data set that we were just looking at a minute ago and make sure all of the columns include only numerics. Right here, you'll be seeing the browser and the campaign are not. These are strings, and we're going to have to take care of these in our learn and transforms. And there's a few other columns that have strings as well, such as the geo-country, geo-city. In order to make that happen, we first want to drag over our feature learn processor right there. But first, let's connect our data just as we do up here. And so in the event store, I believe it's the Adobe event store, and it's the PII events join. Once we have that in here, we'll go to our left side and drag over our feature learn and connect that. And we're going to go into feature learn and we're going to go down to treatments, and this is where we're going to create all of our treatments that will be applied to our data. Click add, and then we're going to name our treatment name, and for this I'm going to call it label encoder, also known as string indexer, and Spark label encoder is what scikit-learn uses for its name, but that's what I'm going to be using on those string columns that we just looked at. Down here at features, this is where you'll add your columns, of which only this treatment can be applied to the columns that you add right here. So we're going to do campaign, and do geo-city, geo-country, and the operating system is also a string. For our methods, we can add many methods back to back that will feed into each other, creating a pipeline. But for this one, I just want to use the string indexer. Order type frequency descending as default. I'm going to keep the invalids. So this string indexer can only be applied to these columns. If I want to have the string indexer applied to another column, simply just add it. But if I want to use a different method, I'll just add it, do the same thing all over again, give it a treatment name, add the columns, and if I want to use something else, such as one hot encoder, I'll just apply that just like so. But for now, I just want to use the string indexer. I'm going to click OK. We have our output. I like to change the output names of all the things that I add. So I'm going to call this one, this is the output name. Let's just do learn. Next, we'll add our feature transform, of which this model, which gets produced by our feature learn, will feed into the transform. And we also connect our data. And this is what the model looks like after it's run. I'm not going to be running anything right now so as to save time. So this is our feature transform, and in here we only have our default partition column, but right up here you can just click add all, and this is our mapping, and we're going to be mapping treatments, feature formats, identifiers, and the partition columns to our data set. And in the treatment section, under each column you'll see your options. And on most of the columns for us, there's going to be no options available because we did not set any treatments on any columns except for those 5 columns. So if I come down to browser, I'll see I have my label encoder available, and I want to go to each column that I look to transform and select the treatment that I designated for that column. And operating system. Here under feature format, you'll see a few options. I like to keep it as simply just a vector, just to keep the numbers there that it will be transformed into. Our identifier column that I chose for this will be MCVIS ID. And our partition column is right here at the bottom, event partition. Set this to yes, and then I want to make sure that it's also yes for identifier on the partition column. Okay, and that's all we need to do to set up our feature transform. Once again, I'm going to rename the output. I'm going to call it transformed. Once this runs, as we can see up here, all of our strings have become numbers. And these numerics are going to allow our model to be able to run properly without getting any errors. So now we have GeoCity and GeoCountry as just numbers, as long as operating system, campaign, and browser. And this is all you need to do in order to transform your data. And that is it for today's lesson.